diving into today's episode of Agency Journey, let me tell you real quickly about our sponsor, Aribi. Aribi is a super cool all-in-one marketing analytics tool. They've got Google Analytics squarely in their sites right now. And I can remember setting up Google Analytics as a sophomore in college and thinking this was just the coolest platform. And as it's matured, it's still super powerful, but it's become so complex to deal with. And Aribi has a value prop totally aside from this. But what I absolutely love about my experience plugging Aribi into zenpilot.com is I didn't have to mess around with setting up what events I wanted to capture and tracking all my changes. And if I messed up with view, then it would delete all the data that I had. I just plugged it in, it crawled, it captured all of our events, made it super easy to see our funnel. And it just works. I love being able to see, for example, how many people read the definitive guide to ClickUp for agencies, a blog post that I wrote, 6 months ago. See where those folks come from, how that influences the buying process, the funnel, the way that it works out. So super excited to have Aribi as a sponsor. You can check it out. Go to aribi.io/agencyjourney. It's all one word. If you spin up a free trial there, use the coupon code agencyjourney. Same thing, all one word. That'll give you 20% off any plan, which is super generous of them. And remember, they can track all of our conversions. So check them out. That's aribi.io. We appreciate their sponsorship. Let's get on with the episode. All right. Welcome into another episode of Agency Journey. I'm Gray McKenzie here from ZenPilot. I'm really excited to have Jeremy Weisz, Dr. Jeremy Weisz from Rise25 on the podcast. Jeremy, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
So it's been fun to get to know you a little bit more over the past probably 6 months or so since we initially connected, but we share a couple of clients and you guys are in the podcasting space. Is it fair to call you like a done for you, mostly podcast provider?
Yeah. I mean, fully done for you. I mean, even to the fact of sometimes we even host people's shows for them. So, I mean, it's totally hands off.
What started? So you guys will do everything from finding the guests, booking the guests, getting them in, doing the interview itself, doing the post-production, doing the promotion, the whole, and obviously I would assume there's the show setup part as well that you guys are doing. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, if you compare it to ZenPilot, it's like one of the most important pieces is the strategy, the foundational strategy of why are you doing the podcast? How do you set up the podcast? What kind of guests do you have on the podcast because people, anyone can hit record and post something online, right? But setting it up, just like anyone could probably sign up for ClickUp and create a board, but are they going to do it properly? That's going to make sense for their business. And so the first part of everything is the strategy, making sure it's on point. And then we do ongoing, just like you do, like support and strategy, because there's always optimization to be done. I mean, when are we not, trying to nurture and give to our relationships in our business? Like it's an ongoing process. And so I feel like I've been podcasting for over a decade and helping podcasts for over a decade. It's the last thing I would ever stop doing because it's a way that I can give to my relationships and, and just profile them like you do as well. And so with that comes the strategy piece, but then the execution piece, which is like, okay, as a business owner, in my opinion, you should be building relationships and running your business and not doing anything else. So in our process, it's very simple. It's like we create a portal for someone to upload the file, like after they're done with using Zoom. And people ask about technology setup, which we can always get into because people like to hear, like they ask questions like, what microphone do I use? How do I get downloads and subscribers? Like those are the common questions. Like we can answer that in 30 seconds, right? This is a Blue Yeti. I think I've had this for about 10 years. I have a one over there. And this is like, $100, $120. And then it's a USB mic. You plug it in the computer, it's done. And then I have an ATR 2100 over there, which is like $70. It works great. Plug it in there in your computer. And I used to use Skype like years ago with Ecamm call recorder. And now Zoom is just so easy. Everyone's on Zoom. We're on Zoom. So you could literally just use Zoom. So the process is very simple. They upload that folder or that file, get it to us, and then they're done. So we basically take it and do all of the writing. We have developers that go into someone's website to post it. We distribute it across all the channels. And the key point is, we were talking this before we hit record, is making your guest aware that it's live, making people aware that it's out there is key. Like people drop the ball. It's like they're on the 1 yard line and they're like, some people never even inform the guest it's live or give them an asset for them to make it easy for them to share,
right.
So
so I want to come back to that in a second, but where did hosting podcasts come from? Was that something you guys wanted to do because you love it so much? Or I would assume that maybe came from clients.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's recommended. So when we are working with someone, one of the things, and I could talk about this, I consider there's kind of 5 types of episodes when you're looking at content for your podcast. Okay. There's one of them is thought leadership episodes. So your internal thought leaderships, which is not external guests. Right. What I find with thought leadership, like you can, Ray, you could turn the mic on and start talking about, how to have a smooth onboarding process and everything. But the thing is, it's more engaging to have a conversation. So when we're working with clients, we actually interview them for the thought leadership episode. So we map out, and of course, we've helped people create hundreds of courses. So, there's clients that we will record with and they end up turning that into a course or even turning that into a book or something like that. So we want to structure the thought leadership piece. So we will be the guest interviewer. Right. So we're not hosting the show for those pieces. So those are the thought leadership kind of types of episodes. It's important because then you have a lot of good webinars out there and it shows your authority, expertise, and people can learn from you and get value from you before they even talk to you. So it's really powerful. And then the other pieces are, having on potential referral partners, just relationships that you want to really give to and people you admire, companies you admire. Like that's why I had you on, because I really love what you guys are doing in, with ZenPilot and helping agencies. And so you could have referral partners, collaboration partners. You could profile your clients. You could profile potential clients. You could profile other authorities in the space who are speakers, authors, and maybe they have communities of people that would, get value from your expertise. And so under those ones, external interviews, like it's not, I recommend someone from their team is hosting their show, obviously, because they're building the relationship. But there are people like, listen, Jeremy, you guys have done thousands of interviews. I don't even want to show up. You handle it. And then in that case, we will, that's not the norm, I would say. Maybe it's like 10% of cases where, we will actually be the host of their show as well. And then we just, pass that relationship back off to the company, go, hey, you guys chat about XYZ from the interview. So
that's interesting. That it seemed strange to me at first. And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess that it's a huge time savings. But
if you think of TV shows, great, like they all have different hosts. There's different hosts on the new. I mean, it's not like the head of NBC is like hosting these different channels. I mean, so it's done in other mediums as well. It's just not as common in the podcasting. Yeah,
for sure. So we've got a couple of shared clients who are agencies. Obviously, that's who we work with. You work with all kinds of folks. Maybe feel free to talk through what percentage of your client base is kind of an agency space. But what are the things that agencies, so if you're mapping out, what's the most common strategy is the short way of the question that I'm trying to get to. Is it primarily, hey, we're bringing on our target prospects, or we're trying to bring on the influencers of those podcasts if you had to start one place for an agency?
Yeah. So there's a long-term and short-term approach, right? So one, a way to give to your current, sometimes we go to the new and shiny. I want to have this huge authority in the space. So I break it up into warm and cold, right? And so what I think a mistake people make is they kind of chase these newer, shinier, maybe bigger name people in an industry. And we have some amazing relationships. So why not just feature the people you know and the people who know, like, and trust you? So featuring current clients. I basically feature our clients all the time on the podcast, and I get to profile what they're working on. and I get to also, it helps me just ask more questions and learn more about their business. So I think, having your current clients on,
Right.
and obviously they're going to be on like, oh my God, it was amazing to work with Gray, like the onboarding. I mean, I was interviewing someone the other day and I didn't ask them to say anything nice about me, but like, oh my God, the onboarding was so smooth. It's been great working with you. I'm like, yeah, thank you. And this was it's on the podcast. So again, the podcast is all about their story and them, not about me. But to answer your question, low-hanging fruit is like, why not have
Clients
your clients
first,
with you?
Or clients intermixed in there.
Yeah. And then so do you have, you were saying, do you have partners, potential clients, authorities? So like for me, I prefer like a longer term approach is to have like my favorite people, collaboration partners, strategic partners, collaboration partners on, because it's a two-way street. People, when they think about this, and we are looking at our list of guests, and maybe let's say like 60% of them, let's say, have referred us someone or have become a client. But on the flip side of that, probably 50% of our clients, we become their client and we refer them clients.
Right.
So because that's what a collaboration is. Like we refer people to them. So, you think about it, there's people in their mind. And by the way, it's table stakes that the content is going to be good, right? Because if you have people, experts in your industry on, they're going to know what they're talking about. You have someone who's been in the industry, like agency industry for 10 years, they're going to know what to do. Like, I know you had Joey Gilkey on, who's a mutual friend. And again, like he's been in the space a long time. He knows a lot of people. He also is a master at sales. So he's going to produce great content, but he also probably knows people who should be doing ClickUp integrations.
Right.
So it's just, it's like this, when you think of that kind of Venn diagram thing, it's, you have a great collaboration partner. Okay. And that person, the collaboration partner for you may also become a client. Like Joey, for all I know, is thinking about doing ClickUp, and he could become a client of ZenPilot. And then the third piece is amazing content, right? And he's going to be able, because he's been in the space so long, he's going to be able to like give some tips on how do you close more sales or training salespeople or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I go for the longer term approach.
Partnership is,
which is you can have potential clients on. I had someone a couple months ago say, Jeremy, this person wants to start a podcast. You should talk to him. And I go, hey, let's not even have that conversation. Why don't you just, they were amazing entrepreneur. And I go, let me just have them on the podcast. Like forget about, so it's almost like, I don't know if I don't know if it's like dating. It's like, let's say you're dating and a girl wants to, kiss you or something like that. Right. And then you back off. You're like, listen, no, let's take it slow. Let's take it slow. And let me take you on another like fine dining date. And so just taking it slow and delivering value first. And so I go, yeah, just have them on. Just don't worry about the sale. Totally. We'll talk about that after the podcast. So I was able to, so that's in the case of a potential client. And that was even an incoming referral. And I just took a step back and said, let me deliver value to you before I know you're even interested in it.
Yep.
Let's do that. And then we can have that conversation afterwards. So you can definitely have potential clients on as well.
That makes sense. So what's kind of going through my head is I'm thinking of the person who's listening who's either thought about starting a podcast or, hey, that might be obviously if someone's still tuned in, they're probably considering it or they already have a podcast. And so some of this is just kind of okay, if I have a podcast right now, but there's things I need to rethink internally for us. I'm just finishing up revamping our podcast processes so that we actually get consistent with the podcast and it's not on me to do the production and any of that stuff.
It's not a good use of your time.
It's not the best use of my time to, I like it. It's not that I don't enjoy doing the work for it, but yeah, it's not the best place for me to spend my time. So, the reason I ask about strategy, where do you start there? How do you approach it is, maybe there's a place in this space for more internal thought leadership versus guest-based interviews, or maybe we should rethink how we're doing guests. Is there any mix that you have or that you would recommend to most people as far as one out of every 4 episodes? I'm sure there's no science. There may be a science to this. There's probably science to more things than we realize, but 1 out of every 4 episodes, you should do an internal like thought leadership piece, or the podcast really isn't the place for that. People come here because they expect interviews, and so keep it consistent.
That's a good question. I think some people go on both ends of the spectrum. Like there's ones I've seen that almost all of them are just their thought leadership. And I've seen the opposite where none of them are. We try and do about 1 a week. I mean, again, like we're not normal in the sense of, we have 2. So John, my Corcoran, my business partner, has also been podcasting for over 10 years. So he puts out 2 to 3 episodes a week. I put out 2 to 3 episodes a week. So as a company, we probably, we put out 4 to 6 episodes per week. Okay. So when I say we do 1, some people only do 1 a week. Some people only do 1 a month, right? Which I recommend doing at least 1 a week. But we probably every week, I would say on average so it's about 25%.
Yep.
So it's like 1 a week is a thought leadership piece.
I think that's helpful. I think that's one thing that Andrew and I have kicked around is, we do very little of our own. We've got a lot of good stuff kind of cooking up that we should probably be sharing back in a more active way than some of that's on the blog.
I would encourage people like, listen, the way we do it, because listen, you're busy. And then probably by the time you guys are doing your separate things, by the time you come together and talk, you probably have 150 things that you need to discuss. And we've found it's very simple. It's like, we just schedule an ongoing block, the same hour every single week. And we know it's an hour. So the podcast will be 30 minutes. And we know we will have a buffer time to discuss whatever we discuss. But even if you go, John, I have something really important we got to go over, it's like, no, this is blocked off for this episode. After we're done with this, we can talk about this. So it's just, you have to be disciplined about it. And then you show up and it's already blocked out. It doesn't matter.
Right. All right. I'm going to ask you 2 questions that you're going to hate me for, because you're going to be like, this is impossible to answer. I've heard this question a handful of times though, like what is good for, and people are thinking about metrics. So I'm launching a podcast. I'm 3 months into it. Everyone's frustrated. I'm at 90 downloads an episode right now, which is in reality probably beyond where most podcasts are at 3 months in. If people are just organically, if you just take the average podcast off the shelf. Do you have any benchmarks if you're looking at it and you're saying, and obviously downloads is not the ultimate, that's not the ROI number that comes from it.
Yeah. Totally.
How do you think about that, or have that conversation with folks who are wondering if the podcast is going to be worth it?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're going to be disappointed in my answer maybe, but like it's ultra simple. And I was having a conversation with someone who, people often come to us not only are starting, but they want to actually get ROI from their podcast, because most people don't stop podcasting, as because of poor audio quality. They stop because they're not getting the return for the energy and time and money that they're spending on it. And so I had someone come to me, they had over 1 million downloads. Okay. And they were not getting ROI. And they're like, what do I do? Should I talk to? Someone said, talk to Jeremy. I'm like, okay. I get on the phone with them. And so in their situation, this is like not a normal situation, right? They have a ton of downloads. But my point is, they were not getting ROI even with a ton of downloads. People are like, oh, the holy grail, I just need more downloads. That's not a holy grail. It's vanity metrics. So what? So you have 1 million downloads. So what? Like, let's say 10 million people listen to Zen Pilot's podcast, The Agency Journey. I mean, you'd be able to command some sponsor dollars. That's cool. But let's say you couldn't get a sponsor, right? Probably less than 1% of those people are actually agency owners who could use your service. So does it really matter that 1 million people are listening for your business? It doesn't matter unless and most people, that's what they think they're going to monetize the podcast. So the first thing is they think they're going to monetize the podcast through sponsorship. Okay. And so like the companies we work with have an actual business, and so do you. it's typically a B2B type of business. So they have a higher client lifetime value. So for them to get 1 or 2 or 3 clients for the year, like pays for us for 5 years, right? So the metric is very simple. I mean, the metric is getting into conversations with your referral partners, collaboration partners, and having them have a vehicle for them to refer to you. Like, it's so much easier for people to refer to you, right, with a podcast. Go, oh, talk to Joey Gilkey. He's awesome. You don't have to, Joey may not be looking for ClickUp right now. He may have clients looking for ClickUp, maybe not right now, but so let's grab a coffee. You could make that conversation and deliver value a lot more when you have that podcast. So back to your question about metrics, the metric I look at is very simple. Okay. Cause I also had someone come to me and go, Jeremy, we have this opt-in box, we offer this free opt-in, and we're trying to figure out X number of percentage of people get this opt-in. And after that, it converts to our core, whatever. I'm like, that's so complicated. Okay. It's very simple. Look at your podcast list. Like if I pulled up InspiredInsider right now and I said, who has recommended, my metric is like, who's like just an amazing champion of me and recommends guests to me. It's up to them once they are, let's say, on my show, they hear about what we do. I mean, I don't need to throw it in someone's face. People already know what you do, right? It's like, you don't have to like hit them over the head with it. You have a relationship with that person. It's about creating real relationships. So I can look at my guest list and go, who's referred me guests that are awesome? And maybe they even referred clients, and maybe they even became a client.
As you guys look at this, and maybe you don't do any type of active reporting, but I'm coming obviously from the agency framework where we've got a retainer service for somebody. They're going to ask for some type of, or expect some type of monthly reporting. If I'm running your Facebook ads, here's your monthly report of whatever it was. Do you even give that? I would assume podcasters have access to see the download numbers or whatever if they want.
100%. I haven't looked at my download numbers in probably 6 years. I mean, I have no idea. If you said, Jeremy, I'm going to give you $1 million. If you give me exactly what your downloads are today, I could not tell you because it's not a metric that I care about.
So is there any ROI tracking that you do, or is it, because it sounds like it's more, hey, this is the feel, like, are you getting referrals? Are you getting, and where my brain is, like, I'm very data oriented. So I want to break it down and figure out, okay.
I mean, I could look, let's take your podcast for like, my metric is very simple. I could go on zenpilot.com. Well, right now I'm on topic sales, so I'm not on your podcast page, but let's
blog and then the interview topic.
Okay. So I could go to zenpilot.com/blog and go to the interview topic. So it's very simple metric, right? So I can click on, so I'm seeing Jordan West here, that's a mutual. I know Jordan, he's awesome. But I can look and see your list, who is referred you someone.
Yep.
Who has become a client, who has referred you guests. Okay. So that's a trackable thing. You don't need some like fancy automation or database. Like I could look through the past, 50 guests you've had and tell you, okay, this person is actually a client. This person's become a client. This person's referred me a client or guests. And it's a very simple metric. And for you, if you get one, my opinion, if you get 1 or 2 clients for the year, it's, you have a higher client lifetime value. So it's going to be worth it. And it's just, year 1, year 2, year 3, if you're having these strategic, like let's say I have, 52 people on this year and 10% of them refer me one person. That's only 5 people, but that doesn't matter. Then year 2, year 3, year 4, I have another 5 people, another 5 people, another 5 people. So you don't need big numbers. It's not like a CPG company. If you're running Facebook ads, you need to generate like 1,000 sales at $32 to make it worthwhile, And again, like that's a real ROI based. People thinking, yes, you want to get ROI, but like I think of relationships. Who are these people have actually become like really good friends? I've become friends. Like you have Joey on there. I talk to him once a month. If it weren't for the podcast, maybe we would have never talked. And we'll talk at least once a month and just chit chat about from a personal development or professional development standpoint, he's given me some really key sales advice because we're friends. Like that's invaluable. Like the one piece of advice he's given me on that is worth doing the podcast for the year. Right. And so people want to see ROI, but also there's metrics that aren't tracked. It's like, you may have given me one thing, like we talked about one thing on the podcast about time tracking and tracking time to projects. And I go back to John, like, Gray mentioned this amazing, like, we need to be doing this time tracking so it's granular. Like, how valuable is that going to be to our business when we implement that, right? That's invaluable. That could be worth 5 years of me doing the podcast because of that one tip that you gave. So there is a professional development standpoint. You get to come on, we are having this conversation. You could ask me any question you want on how to improve your podcast right now. And so you're getting advice from people typically who've been doing something for decades.
Right.
So that's another, again, I think in relationships, not like dollar signs typically. So for me, that relationship, and it's not like a warm and fuzzy like thing. It's a real thing that I can call on my network whenever I have an issue or have a problem.
Right. Well, yeah, I think the takeaway obviously is, how are you looking at that? You may, depending on how people are wired, they may or may not want to have that tracked in another way. Internally in our ClickUp, we've got a database for who our strategic partners are. And, that's a recurring task where, depending on how close we are with somebody, we'll touch base. If it's Joey, and we've also got shared clients back and forth, and we'll touch base with them on a monthly basis at least. If it's someone else who maybe we're not as tight with, or we're more loosely affiliated with, touch base on a quarterly basis. So we're probably more organized or built it. Like there's more intentionality to a system behind it than maybe the average person is. But I think so people have different tolerances for how they want to measure that or how much tracking they want to do to that. But
I mean, let's say you got no clients out of the podcast. Okay. But let's say, I mean, you are having like a hiring question and you basically had on the top hiring experts on your podcast to get advice on it. I still think it's 100% worthwhile,
right,
to have a podcast. And a lot of people I know who are successful with a podcast and have been doing it for a long time, would say, I do it if no one was listening.
Right.
Just for the professional development piece.
And the fun. It's fun to talk to interesting people who know way more than you do about. Like, I love being in those situations where you're clearly, like this conversation, I'm clearly the dumbest person on the call. And I love learning from it.
Don't know if that answers your question.
It's not,
maybe it wasn't what you expected, but
I'm the common, I think feedback will come, hey, what's your industry? What's a client worth? If you're targeting clients who have a LTV that's $1,000, you need a lot more downloads, or you need a lot more people listening, or a lot more referrals, or more stuff coming in. And if you're targeting a 100K, if you're in Joey's situation, if their LTV's substantially higher than that, then you could be fine with 10 downloads if it's the right 10 downloads. You guys do video on all your podcasts?
Yeah, I've been doing video for like 10 years. Yeah.
You're ahead of the curve. I remember using Skype and Ecamm call recorder, and at the time had really crappy internet when we started ours. And so video off was like a mandate just so that we could have clean audio coming out of it. How do you guys leverage the video in a way that makes it worth the work? Yeah.
I mean, also, I was using Ecamm call recorder, and I remember at the time the PCs, like you could really, the files are so big. So I bought a Mac specifically at that time because it was just better files. But and I always recorded video with people, and now it's more normal because people are on Zoom. But then I had to kind of be like, no, I did like walk them through, get a Skype account and whatever. But why do video versus not video? And actually, I was talking about this with a client the other day, and we've been working with them for a while. They're like, Jeremy, I'm thinking of adding video, right? And so I sometimes just try and talk people out of spending money with us if I don't think it's going to serve them. So I said, well, let me argue for video. Let me argue against video, and you could decide if we should be doing video. And because ultimately they're already producing it with Zoom. And so we are just thinking, what's the benefit? That's what you're asking. Okay. So, I mean, there's long-term benefits and short-term benefits. Okay. Now the benefit of not doing it, the disadvantage of doing it is obviously it takes more time to produce. If we're helping someone, it's a push button thing. So they don't have to worry about that. But if we are doing it, it's going to cost additional money to do it. And typically when we're doing it, we will just take it, we will clean up, make it look nicer, lower third, upper thing, all that. We'll go into their YouTube channel, post it there, put the description stuff, and then embed it in the blog post. So it's totally hands off, but there's an extra cost. So the downside is extra cost for our clients because they don't have to do any extra work, really. The upside, so if you're producing it yourself, obviously there's a time involved in doing all that and team's time, whatever. The upside of video, and this is why I do video, and I would say people, even if you're only, as you do, like if you're only producing the audio, you'd still record it, the video, you should still do it on video because it's just more personal when you're talking to the person, you can see them. But why you should do video is also more of a longer term approach because as we know, Google owns YouTube, right? So all the videos and things you're putting on YouTube start to rank. I mean, there's people on my podcast, if you search their name, I am 4 search results on the first page of Google.
Yeah.
For their name. I'm the second. I did this. I was looking up someone the other day. I'm the second. I'm the 4th. I'm a second for my website, InspiredInsider. I'm the 4th because of a podcast channel. I am further down because my YouTube video shows up in the first page. So there's a SEO benefit, and I am by no means an SEO expert. I know enough to be dangerous, but there's an SEO benefit to having it. And you start ranking I've ranked for other people's names, their company names. So people are searching for them, they find me. I think, and I don't think that's necessarily the number one reason to do it, but that is a big benefit. The second one is it's just more personal. Even if someone doesn't watch the video, like if you go to, one of my posts on InspiredInsider and you click on it, or someone shares it on social media and they go to the post. When you go to the post, it has a nicely written paragraph. It's got a video thumbnail. It's got a video there and you could see me. Even if someone only listens to it, there is a personal connection there with seeing me. So you look at, I just published Jonathan Jacobs, who's also an agency owner. He runs Digital Natives Group. And you go on there, there's a big embed code and you can see my face. You could scroll right past it and then click the audio embed or look at just read the post, read the bullets or whatever. But you see me there and there's that personal connection. And that's, for me, it's more about that personal connection than like SEO or something like that.
Are you guys taking those in any cases and chopping those? I mean, that's the common reason that I see people advocate for it is, hey, we can take those, we can chop it up. And if you're a massive company and if you're the Ringer and you're producing content and then you want to take a snippet out of a podcast that was, hey, this piece is social media worthy. Now we're going to share it out. Have you guys played with that at all at this point?
Yeah, we do that. And we do that for clients too, where we'll take all of our writers, because they're writing the post, look at what is a good section. So they'll pick out like a 30 to 60 second section that is, more profound, because there's a lot of stuff like in a 30 to 40 minute interview. They'll pick out that section and then we will take a clip and create like a dynamic audio from that. And then we'll actually post it on social media. So we do those personally for all of our episodes and then clients who want us to do that. The thing is with that also, Gray, I would say the same thing about doing the podcast. Well, it's a way to attract, if you're putting it on LinkedIn or whatever the case is, engagement. But I don't do, that's not predictable, right? I can't, if let's say like I have 15,000 LinkedIn connections and you have 500. Well, is it worth doing it if you have like 250 connections? And I would say yes, because I'm not basing it off of downloads or engagement. I'm going off of, this is a piece of content that the guest that you have on is going to be proud of sharing. that you can now, just another way of giving to your guest. So just my audience is giving to Gray. Like if no one listened to the podcast, Gray, I still would make introductions for you because you've been on my show, and I will put it onto my, one will come out of you of that short clip.
Yep.
So I mean, it makes that relationship go further. And of course, you're going to have the side benefit of the engagement. It makes it easier for you to share. Oh, cool. Jeremy put out this like 30-second clip, and you can easily share it on your social media.
Well, yeah, two really tactical questions off of that. One is, are you guys just doing the audiograms, or are you actually taking the video from the podcast as well and putting captions over that?
We do both, but most people don't do video. So
it is primarily
it's mostly a, kind of that dynamic audio. So there's not a video piece. And even people who have video, I still sometimes just recommend doing the dynamic audio. We're like, yeah, we could do the video part, but like, when you have a 60-second clip, we can just accomplish the same exact thing without using the video also. So I don't think you need video for those personally.
That makes sense. Well, yeah, even if you use video, just because so much of that stuff gets consumed on mobile, you want to throw captions over it.
It has to be captioned. Exactly. And someone we talked about this, John and I talked about this. We did a LinkedIn Live that will be a podcast episode, and we talked about this very thing, which it's key to have that captions, because you may be at work and you don't want the sound blaring, or you may be in bed at night just scrolling through and people consume it.
Right.
Yeah.
As you're using with those clips themselves, are you sending the actual video files? This is really technical, but are you actually sending the video files to the guests, or are you just posting those and then they can?
No, we post it and tag them so they can share it.
You'll have to download it and re-upload.
I mean, it's rare where someone's like, hey, can I have that file to share it on mine? And of course I'm like, yeah, sure. Of course. I mean, people have asked for the full interview. They're like, can I share it on my, and they've created it. I'm like, yeah, of course. It's fine. But it's 99% of the time, it's just shared on ours, and then make it easy for them to share on theirs as well.
Right. Awesome. Well, this has been really helpful. I appreciate you going deep and let me pick your brain on where this goes. Folks want to learn more about Rise25. Obviously, we've got Insider or Inspired Insider as well. But give us real quickly links, best places to go to speak more, to reach out to you. If someone's looking at either taking their podcast to the next level or starting a podcast.
Yeah, you can go to rise25.com. We have a video on there. We talk about, how do you get ROI with the podcast? And you can always, there's a contact page or you can go to InspiredInsider.com and check out some of the interviews. And there's a contact page there where you can just email me.
Awesome.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.